Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Welcome to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. This is your host, Steve Fielder, coming at you one more time through the miracle of Al Gore's internet. We have a great podcast lined up for you today. I've been really excited ever since this guy told me that he would agree to come on. I've known our guest for quite a long time. Anybody in the coonhound competition world will recognize the name. He's hunted some of the most famous dogs in coonhound history of the last few years, and has made quite a resume for himself in major wins and so forth. But out swelling his head too big here today, I'll introduce our audience to Mr. Jeff Ricklefs. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm great, Steve. Man, I tell you, my headphones don't fit anymore after that introduction. That was pretty nice of you. But.
Well, you know what they say, it ain't bragging if you can do it. You know. So.
Well, you look back, it's been many, many, many years, and I guess I have had a lot of accomplishments that I wanted to do, and they've come to fruition. I mean, it's been unbelievable when you do look back through the years now. So. And I've just been very fortunate.
Well, I tell you, as you say, or it says, the harder we work, the luckier we get. And I know that you, for one, are a guy that has really worked at this thing of being a professional handler and, knowing your way around the regulations and the rules and being knowledgeable and all of that stuff that goes along with it. And we're going to talk about all that stuff today. I want to do just a little bit of housekeeping and pay the bills before we go any further. I want to thank my friends, Buddy Woodbury, Jason Doobie, my producer Shannon out at DU Hunting Supply, WU Hunting Supply, that provide the platform for me to come to you each week. You guys out there, if you have any needs at all for your hounds or for your hunting activities, contact the people at dusupply.com. They have excellent customer service. They'll be willing to absolutely service what they sell, help you with any questions or problems that you might have with your equipment. So there's a shout out, and buddy, I've paid the bills for one more week. Okay, Jeff, I want our listeners, in case anybody's been hiding under a rock out there and don't know who you are or your background or whatever, I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, kind of talk about your family, where you live now, met your lovely wife, Gwen, back before you guys were married. And I said, man, Jeff has really stepped up his game here with this gal. And so anyway, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Jeff.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Well, I was actually born in 1963, so that tells you that I'm getting old. And I was born in West Lafayette, Indiana. My dad, Ralph, and my mom, Diane Ricklefs. And I had two sisters, both older than me. And unfortunately, one of them, my oldest sister, passed away in 2014 at a very young age. Yeah, 57 years old.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it was quite the blow. Very out of the, just out of the blue. She had a cancer that they thought could be pretty high success rate of curing, and they couldn't cure it. So she passed away in 14. And then I have another sister, and she actually just retired from State Farm Insurance after 43 years.
Wow.
A week ago. She's actually 63 years old. She still lives in the area around my mom. We lived outside a little town in between West Lafayette, which everybody will know where the Purdue Boilermakers are at, and then there's a little town called Otterburn, Indiana. And we lived out in the country in between those two. So that was, that's where I was born and raised and lived most of my life until around 2012. That's when I met Gwen, and she's from Fort Wayne, Indiana. And
other
it's
side
about
of the state.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Yeah.
So we did that lovely long distance dating for 5 years. But she kind of came from a hunting background. Her dad was a coon hunter way back in the day. He was a black and tan man, and he did it for a long time when he was young. But so she knew what that was all about when we met, and so I was very fortunate that when we really started dating a lot, I'd come up to spend the weekend. I would actually bring my dog, and her dad showed me some places to hunt, so I was able to hunt as we were dating. And that lasted for about 5 years, and it was like, okay, if we're gonna get serious here, let's do something. Well, I was driving a semi and hunting, hauling agriculture products for a very good friend of mine, Kevin D-Boy. Very good coon hunter too. We hunted a lot together, hunted 4 or 5 nights a week, and I drove a truck for him. So Gwen works for Northeastern REMC, a power company, and she'd been there for 30 years at the time. She's been there 32 now, so however long that's been. And so it was just a lot more, it was much easier for me to make the move up here, and because she had a lot of time invested in everything there. So at the time she was living in town, and I said, that's not going to work. I have coon dogs. I have Polaris Rangers, motorcycles. I'm kind of the hillbilly redneck. And kind of a funny story I'll tell real quick, that when we were dating, her brother wanted to go coon hunting with me. It was kill season, and I had Polaris Ranger on a trailer. Long story short, when the hunt was over that night, he wanted to kill some coons. It was kill season. I'm not a huge coon killer, but we killed 6 or 7 coons, and I had them stacked on the back of this Polaris Ranger, blood running down the sides. And the next morning when we wake up, I'm parked in her real nice neighborhood with mud all over everything and coon blood running down the sides. So yeah, she realized right then that was not going to work. But
we got to keep up appearances, right?
Oh, absolutely. So we started looking around, and we actually bought 4 acres from her mom and dad. And in 2016, I moved up and we built a new house. And
awesome.
That's where we're at now. Yeah.
And life is good, isn't it, Jeff?
Life's great. We've had some issues over the actually just over the last couple months that I'll tell real quick. A lot of my friends know. I'm sure some people don't know, but I'd have had some pretty bad back issues for 12 or 13 years that were kept under control with just epidural steroid shots and things. Well, I got to the point where I was picking and choosing my hunts I wanted to go to by I needed to do like 1-rounder. If it was going to have to be hunted off, I dreaded going because I just knew after 1 round I was going to be almost crippled. So it got bad. I was picking like 1-nighters or stuff that's going to be easy, and it still was horrible. So I knew it was time to do something. I went and saw a surgeon here in Fort Wayne that's very well known, and that day he gave me the news that I absolutely needed a pretty serious back surgery. Within a few hours of him telling me that and scheduling a surgery, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. So,
oh man,
yeah, it was a pretty it wasn't a very good day. But on the upside, all that they caught her breast cancer at a very, very early stage. It was actually at stage 0, and very, 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 very small. So they did a very small lumpectomy a couple months ago. Got it all. The margins around it were great. So she actually is right now as we speak doing her first radiation treatment, which is going to be just 5 of them. It's 2 this week and 3 next week, and she doesn't have to go back for 6 months. So that's all fantastic.
Well, she'll definitely be in our thoughts and prayers, Jeff. What a sweet gal she is. I really have enjoyed speaking with her on a few occasions back, when I was, I think especially with PKC. And so we certainly wish her the best. Well, how's the back doing?
Well, that's the next thing I was going to tell you, that it's been a blessing. I'm ready to roll. Went back to my surgeon last week. They did X-rays, said everything is healing great.
Mm.
Still on a little bit of a weight restriction as far as lifting. Don't want me to bouncing around on some stuff, but hey, I can walk all I want. I've been hunting about every night here for 4 or 5 weeks now. It was a little bit hard getting around in the woods for the first few weeks. Just had to be careful not to fall in this, but it was a little harder trying to can't bend, twist, do this or that. So a little
Mm.
difficult. But I've been walking 2, 4, 5 miles a day on the road out here getting ready. And the last 2 weeks, I met John Strickland up here. It's who I hunt for now, and I met him up here last week, and we hunted about all night. So this Friday night, I'm going to make my debut. I'm going to go to a hunt and a doubleheader UKC hunt, see how I get along, and then next week's back to the big boys. I'm going to go down and try to rub elbows at the $100,000 pro sport hunt. So,
well, awesome.
I'm ready to go. But yeah, to answer your question, the pain's gone. What I went in for, he absolutely fixed it, and it's awesome.
Oh, well, that's great. I've never actually had any serious back problems. I've had a few. I've been told I've got a couple bulging discs, but it really doesn't bother me. I just try to be careful about what I lift and all. Well, listen,
Sure.
That's just great news about you and Gwen. And let's talk about your coon hunting background. You said you grew up in the country over there around Lafayette or West Lafayette. How did you get started coon hunting?
Well, it's kind of crazy. My dad was a little bit of a hunter, just some like rabbit and pheasant hunting when he was growing up. He had never ever been coon hunting. In fact, and there were some neighbors about 2 miles north of us, pretty big farmers. They raised hogs, sheep, baled a lot of hay, stuff like that. And they had a son that was in the same grade as me, and so we got to be friends. And what happened was I used to go up there on the weekends, and I'd spend a night or two, maybe a whole weekend, and I'd help work on the farm. And his name was Chuck Dunwoody. It was the man's name, and his son was Brian McCarty, and it was his stepson actually. But they were coon. He was a coon hunter and just a farmer pleasure hunter. I mean, not much competition at all. And he hunted with some people around that area that had competition a little bit. The Brummets were their last name, and so I was a very young, around 10 years old. Yeah, I was going to tell you that earlier too. I'm horrible with exact ages and dates and everything. So if my friends hear me make a mistake on dates and stuff, that's going to happen because I'm horrible with that. But
well, we're not going to fact check you.
Don't fact check me, but
that's right.
But no, we just go, and I remember. I mean, I still remember. I'm 59 years old now, and so 49 years later, I can remember the first few hunts I went on. I was hooked. I mean, it was just absolutely. I just was amazed at how dogs could, smell a coon track and trail it over and tree up a tree, and there would be a raccoon in it. It was just unbelievable to me. So, I mean, I was hooked at a very young age. Yeah, and it's I started then just hunting with them, and I got old enough. My mom and dad let me get a dog, and the first actual registered coon dog I ever got, people are going to laugh, was a Art Hunzucker bred black and tan. So he was very, very well known back in the day.
Oh, yeah. Now, Art was from down in southern Indiana, wasn't he?
Southern Illinois.
Illinois, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And we actually, a friend of mine there in Lafayette was kind of hunting black and tans and was friend with Art, and we went down and picked this pup up, and it didn't really. He ended up getting loose from the house there, and he ended up getting hit by a car and broke his leg, and he never really got a chance. So he never really turned out. So the first, we'll switch gears here. The first real dog that I had that would actually tree a coon that I owned was a blue tick.
Oh, well, I guess Strickland was proud of that. I mean,
oh yeah, he'd be proud of that.
Yeah.
But we, there was a guy sold me. I have no clue how it was bred. There again, I was under 16, couldn't drive, but he would tree a coon, and I hunted him for a while, and he was I believe I did hunt him in a couple maybe UKC hunts. Don't really remember what happened back then, but to graduate into the first good dog I ever had, I bought from Bruce Jansen, which is a lot of people might know. I believe you'll know his name for sure.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the best dog trainers in the country that, a lot of people just don't know him, but he's trained, coon dogs, bird dogs, beagles, you name any kind of dog. He is trained and he was very good at it, but coon dogs is his main thing. And he still hunts now. He hunted a lot of dogs for, people don't know this. He didn't hunt in the hunts much for him, but, when Russ Bellar bought dogs, he'd send them to Bruce and say, hunt them and see what I got. So I was about 18 or 19. I bought a young dog off Bruce, and for the life of me, I was trying to think this morning, and all I can remember was she was Findlay River bred on one side, but she was wild as a buck deer. But I made her, I made her into a very good dog, and like I said, I was so hooked I'll never forget. I kept track, and one time with this dog, I was so hard headed. Everybody said I would never calm her down enough to make her a good dog, and it was my first dog, so me and her were learning together. But I kept track, and I hunted 63 nights in a row with that dog one time. I mean, that's how obsessed I was about coon hunting. But she turned out to be a great dog. I made her grand night, placed her in the top 20 ACHA world hunts and things like that. So that was, like I said, that was my very first real coon dog I had. So.
Well, I had a little bit of experience hunting over there in that general area of where you're from, Jeff. When I was president of the Plot Association, our secretary was a fella named Wayne Griggs. Did you ever meet Wayne?
I don't think so.
He lived at Rensselaer. How far would that have been from where you?
Probably 30, 35 minutes.
Yeah, and he worked in a vet clinic there in Rensselaer. Was kind of like the office manager there and all. He was a great guy, and we sold him a dog one time, and I went there a few times and pleasure hunted with him. But man, there's some nice hunting up there. Up around him, there seemed to be quite a bit of water and all. Is that near? I mean, is that territory similar to where you hunt or did hunt?
Yeah. I still go down there. It's only 2 hours from here, so I try to make, perfect thing would be going down once a week, because where I live now is a lot more populated, more patchwoods, not big stuff like I'm used to. But I still go down and hunt, and I was born and raised right there and cut my teeth coon hunting on the Wabash River bottom.
Yeah.
Awesome coon hunt.
Well, Indiana has rightfully so, has a great rep as being a great coon hunting state. And I imagine there's probably been more major events, especially for UKC, held in Indiana maybe than anywhere else. You've hunted all over the state. Where would you tend to think the best coon hunting is in the state of Indiana?
It's a lot of people argue that the northern Indiana, where I'm at now, and it's great hunting. But I tell people ask me, I've been asked this question a lot.
Oh, really?
Not just Indiana, but where's the best coon hunting in the United States? Because I've hunted pretty much everywhere.
Sure, I think when you and I hunted, or at least the last time I went hunting with you, was on a hunt out of southern Michigan up there. I think we were hunting somewhere up there around. I can't think of the name.
Probably Reading or
up around Reading, Onstead, that area. Right.
Sure, but I've got to go with, and you can, like I said, there's a lot of people in the competition coonhound world that everybody knows that has been to my house in West Lafayette over there and hunted the river bottoms and all that country over there. And I don't think you're going to get an argument from any of them that is some of the best coon hunting in the United States. It honestly is. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's big country. You can, I mean, it's places you can just keep cutting a dog and make, 10, 12 trees and never move it. So, it's some of the best.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, if anyone would know, you would. That's for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
I still love going down there. Just real quick, I met Strickland down there last Wednesday. He loves it. I mean, he just absolutely loves it. And we started at 10 o'clock and we quit at 2:30 and we treed 13.
That's getting it done.
Two dogs on the ground, just split hunting them, just sending one way and one the other, and just it's pretty awesome down there.
Well, really I lived in southern Michigan, and coon hunting's pretty good up there too.
You darn right.
Yeah, it is. But and it spoiled me, because I was there 22 years, and when I had to leave there and went to North Carolina, boy, it was a rude awakening there. And then things kind of got progressively worse for me as far as coon hunting goes.
Where you're at now, for sure.
Oh, yeah. I went to the mountains of North Carolina. And then, of course, there was, it's kind of like with you moving over toward Fort Wayne. Ella was the one that persuaded me. Well, she didn't really. I persuaded myself because I knew I wanted to be where she was. So I came to Florida. But, well, let's see. Now, in those pleasure hunting years and all, did you have a favorite? Was it that Walker female? Was that your favorite dog of the early days before you competition hunted?
Yeah, it progressed relatively quick from that point as far as, I had her. I had another one that I had actually bought from Bruce Jansen, a very nice little female we called Candy. Same thing, made her a grand. She was a lot farther along. She was already a nice dog when I got her. So that was a couple of them. Then I ended up breeding the Jackie female to Pac-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with a little dog named Trixie that I really enjoyed her. But things progressed quite quickly as far as me kind of getting out of my own stuff. I got to where I was winning some local stuff, kind of got a name as far as, just local stuff. There wasn't much PKC going on at the time, and it just kind of started. So PKC, but I was winning a lot of local UKC hunts and things, and it kind of progressed to where people were asking me to hunt their dogs, and I kind of did that. So there's not a lot of dogs that I owned myself. And once I progressed into that, and it kind of snowballed pretty quick as far as turning into basically not real quick, but it did eventually escalate into where I did it for a living.
Yeah. Well, I believe it was 98 that I went to work for PKC. And of course, I knew you were very much involved in PKC hunting at that time.
Sure.
Just to back up a bit, about how old were you when you started competition hunting? Maybe entered your first hunt.
Yeah, like back in the day when I told you I had the old blue tick and and all that. I was around 15 or 16 then, just a little bit. But actually, the Jackie female was the one I really started. She was the first one I really hit the hunts hard, and like I said, that was UKC days, made her grand night. And by the time when she got a little older, there was a few PKC hunts around. I have no idea how much she wanted PKC, but I was around 20 years old then. So,
yeah.
Well, so that'd have been 83.
Yeah, well, there seems to be an influx of new hunters in our sport now. And I guess from my standpoint, a lot of that comes from the fact that a lot of guys my age have either quit or they've died,
Yeah.
But I've already outlived both my grandfathers, so that's. Yeah. But anyway, I try to encourage the young people, and I really enjoy getting questions and messages and so forth from young people with questions that they're having about training their dogs and all that. And I like to hear you say, that you did start when you were young and that, you were successful. And that's what I keep telling these young guys. I said, it doesn't happen overnight. but, just stay with it, pay attention, listen to the people that know. I think a lot of the younger or new hunters today want to, they feel like they've got to know everything right out the gate, but it's a learning curve, isn't it, Jeff?
Oh my goodness. It's so much of a learning curve. And it's, I try to tell them don't get discouraged. And, I'm not bad mouthing our younger generation that's winning now, but, it's fine. But some of them go to extremes on certain things, and they need to just back up, take a breath, and let it come to them instead of pushing so hard about some of these things.
Yeah.
But that's just the generation in general, and not just coon hunting, and just life in general. How they do things. But
I have to remind myself all the time, Steve, don't be that old guy at the club that's saying you guys don't know how to do anything. You got to do it the way it was back in the day, and it was always better and all that. And I know, there's some things that, they were better for me because I loved it. And, and that's the way I remember things best and all, but times are always changing. I think about these young people and encouraging them. This story about the Kentucky Derby is just an amazing reminder to me of what can happen.
Absolutely.
We've said on this podcast that, on any given night, any dog can win the hunt. Well, within reason, if the dog's running deer all night or whatever, then that's not going to work. But, you have a chance if you've done your homework with your dog, and that dog will get treed and stay treed, and the rules. You've got a chance to win.
Absolutely.
You're not going to win every night, but nobody is. But anyway, that's a little tip there. For more tips, follow me on Facebook, right?
There you go. Yeah, it's like, all this stems, and I think I can talk for about every coon hunter out there. I believe that, it started off as from pleasure, as pleasure hunting. I just absolutely love to go coon hunting, no matter what. But, if you get in that, you get a little bit of that taste of the competition and you win a little bit. For me, it was like, for years now, I can't even tell you how long, but so now every single time I unsnap a snap on a coon dog, it's all about the training to go to the next hunt because I want to win. That's what it's been for many, many years for me. I mean, and it's many, many, many nights you're sitting on a couch and don't want to get up and go because I got to get up early or I'm tired or whatever. But still to this day, I make myself go because, you're not going to make a winner sitting on the couch, and it's tough sometimes. But I don't know. There's very, very few nights that I can say that once I get in the woods and turn that dog loose, that bam, boy, your attitude changes. I'm coon hunting. Everything's great.
Well, that's kind of like I had a little bit different slant on the sport of coon hunting, but I would see you guys out there weekend after weekend, but I was behind the desk, or dealing with, the cast and getting the hunt rolling and that sort of thing. But, and I used to be at home, I'd say, oh man, I got a hunt coming up this weekend. I got to roll out on Thursday. Won't be back home till Sunday, man. I don't feel up to it. I don't want to do it. Every single time I got out there and I got on the road and I pulled into a fairgrounds or a club ground somewhere and saw somebody, man, it was fun from that point till Sunday, when I had to drive back. And I guess it's kind of that way. I remember that in Michigan too. I had good coon hunting all around me. I used to carry a little overlay in my truck in a pouch behind the passenger seat that had all of my landowners and their phone numbers. And I had over 30 that I could go to within a 10, 15-mile radius of the house. And some of them wanted me to call them before I came. Some wanted me to come knock on the door, and others just said, just go whenever you want, But I would sit there, like you said, I'd get in that easy chair and I'd say, "Man, I'm tired."
No,
that today that phone just beat me down. I'm going to
absolutely.
sit here, and then I'd think about that young dog out there in the pen. I'd say, "No, it's not fair to him to leave him there." So I think that's a good lesson to anybody, especially anybody that wants to take it anywhere near the level that you've accomplished, Jeff. They're going
Yes,
to
you
have to put in the time, aren't they?
you got to, absolutely got to put in the time.
Yeah. Well, you've hunted for several people down through the
Yes.
years, and I'd ask you there beforehand to be thinking about a little bit about some of the individuals that you hunted for. Now, you said you hunted for some local people and all. Was the Burgesses and Hardwood Henry, was that one of the first ones of your major owners, or
Yeah.
okay?
I,
Let's hear about that.
I can give you a real quick how, like I was telling you, how it escalated. And really, the first one that people you will know, young listeners won't, but some of the older guys will know. The very first one that really contacted me about hunting, paying me a little bit, sending me some hunts was Henry Hitt in Indiana. Old
Oh yeah, know Henry
Cadillacs,
very
yeah,
well.
yeah, Cadillac style.
Hmm.
Henry's Quick Stop. He sent me to some pro hunts and things. That was where that kind of all started. Wasn't full time at all, but I was hunting dogs for him, and that kind of that's where it really all started. And then um, I didn't hunt for Russ Bellar, but I ended up getting a little dog, and me and him owned her together. Everybody knows her now. That's ever looked back in PKC history. Bellar's Ann.
Oh yeah.
She won the nationals and things, and so I had her for a while. And then, so at the end of that kind of era, when that's a long story and it's on its own that I
Can we
don't even want to
stop
get
real
into.
quick? And I want to tell you one
Yeah,
little quick thing about Henry Hitt.
sure, sure.
I over in West Virginia. He was originally from Richwood, West Virginia. He had what he called the Cherry River Treeing Walkers. And
Okay.
Henry was one of these guys that came to the hunt back in the day when my buddy and I were riding in an old Plymouth Barracuda, we call it Barracuda, with the dogs under the glass hatch in the back
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
sleeping in a pup tent. Henry would roll in the hut with the magnetic signs on the sides of a brand new pickup truck, Cherry River Tree and Walkers. He'd get out, he'd be feeding those dogs out of an Alpo can, you know, and ours is over there scarfing around in the dirt trying to find something to eat. But I remember Henry very, very well, and
Oh
he
yeah.
was a legend in West Virginia. Had a dog named Cherry River Banjo that placed fourth in the ACHA World Hunt one year, and just different ones. But you just bring back memories, Jeff. I'll get off that, but
No,
remember
that's
him
fine because
very, very well. Yeah.
it's he always liked the flash, like you just said. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I was hunting a couple of those dogs I just
Right.
mentioned, that he always
Right.
showed up when we met at a hunt or something. He's always dressed to the hilt and always had that brand new pickup truck, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
super nice guy though.
Mr.
He
Coon
treated me
Hunter.
great. Yes, he treated me awesome.
That's great.
That was, like I said, that's really the first
Mm-hmm.
big name that gave me a chance, as far as he had seen where I was winning local. But all that, it all kind of escalated after the end of when I stopped hunting Bellar's Ann, sold my part out to Russ and things. So there was where it really started was where it grew into something really big was Hardwood Henry. Um, Funny story how that Hardwood Henry kind of started. Um, a friend of mine in Greensburg, Indiana, named Larry Simpson, had a private dancer. That was Hardwood Henry's mom, and
Mm-hmm.
he had bred her to Hardwood Patch, and only one pup lived out of the litter. So Larry would always come up to my house, bring his dad, and on opening night of coon season, and they'd come up and hunt a couple nights, and they bring Dancer, and I didn't even know he'd bred her, to tell you the honest truth. He just shows up opening night of coon season. He's got Dancer, and he's got this 9-month-old pup. And I was kind of in the process of, like I said, I was hunting dogs for people, and I was pretty busy with dogs. And we went hunting, and this 9-month-old pup just he didn't do nothing. I mean, he didn't even go hunting. And Larry's like, man, Jeff, I'm not much of a pup man. I don't have the patience. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you half that pup if you'll hunt him. And I'm just like, Larry, I'd love to, but I'm hunting for people. I'm not a pup man myself. I'm not great with training baby, young puppies. He's not doing anything. So I'm just not interested. So that was Hardwood Henry as a pup.
Mm.
Well, so he sold him, and a boy named Brad Fleetwood ended up getting him. Well, Brad Fleetwood, he was about 13 or 14 months old, if I remember correct, before he really started doing anything. And once he flipped that switch, it was like he went from 0 to 100 that quick. The dog did. And Brad was, there again, he had seen, I didn't know Brad at all, but we saw each other at a hunt, and he came over and he started telling me about the dog. And he knew I was good friends with Larry, and he was telling me all about how good he was doing and everything. Well, boy, he's just whipped through some UKC stuff. And long story short, I was kind of down. I don't remember what dogs and stuff. Me and him were talking on the phone, and he said, would you hunt Henry in some hunts for me? And I'm like, well, I don't know how good a dog you got, Brad. I said, I'd go hunt with him and see what you got. And he brought him up to the house, and we went pleasure hunting. And wow, I really liked what I saw. I said, you leave him here for a couple of weeks, and we'll see what we got. And that was the start. He was just right at 2 years old, and I kept him until he died at my house.
Now, didn't Brad have a female named Hope?
Yeah, she was off of Henry.
Off of Henry. Brad and I hunted together one night, and I'm going to say down at Silver Lake or somewhere down that way. I was trying to get the Kelly female that I had that was out of Silver Dollar Stone and Mill Creek Molly.
I remember Kelly, yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to get her $100 one for the Super Stakes, and Brad and I hunted that night. We almost got those dogs killed on the road. We had to stop a car to do it. But anyway, everything reminds me of a story, Jeff. So
you darn right.
Thanks for the interruption. But yeah. But go ahead.
No, so there again, he was 2 years old, and he stayed at my house pretty much. I'll kind of go through his history until he died at my house when he was 15 years old. So that was I know you're going to ask me down the road, and absolutely there. People, I get this question. I've had it 1,000 times. I have had the privilege of hunting a lot of good dogs, but my two favorites are absolutely number one would be Hardwood Henry, and number two is Bad Habit. Those are definitely the two at the top of my list that I've done the most winning with, and were probably the best coon dogs. But yeah, Henry was, long story with him. I hunted for Brad for a while. I was still working a job at the time, but we were traveling around to a lot of pro hunts. Brad was a young man, and he had just got married, and that it was he was having to dig to get money, but to send me up and down the road. But he did, and we started winning, and Henry got an unbelievable name. And then the first year that he was qualified to go to the Nationals, Brad owned him. I think it was about 99. And we went and we got in the Final Four, and we got second or third. I don't remember, but we started really getting a name for the dog at that point. And the next year, same thing, went to the Nationals with him again, got in the Final Four again. So a little story about that. I think he's the only dog in history. I might be wrong, but 3 years in a row we went to the Nationals, and all 3 years we made it to the Final Four.
That is amazing. Yeah.
We never won it. We batted second, third, and fourth.
Well, I've always said many times, and this is just my opinion and nothing more, but I always thought the Nationals was the hardest hunt in the country to win, because I think the quality of the dogs that were there, the qualification and process that they had to go through and all that to get there, I think for those reasons, I've always said that. Yeah,
all my friends and people that have hunted for many, many years in competition, we all have, we feel the same way as you, that, every dog there has had to win to get there, and absolutely one of the hardest. And it's been a good hunt for me. I have actually second, third, and fourth with Henry at the Nationals, and I actually won it with Wipeout Clayton. So I've batted for the whole cycle. I've had first, second, third, and fourth in it.
Well, listen, before we leave Henry, tell us a little bit about Henry, how he operated and so forth for the people that have heard the name but never hunted with him.
Yeah, absolutely. He was just a pleasure. I mean, he was a great strike dog, not what you see a lot of today, the typical leave you barking, babbling idiots. I'm sorry to say there's a lot of those nowadays, but he absolutely was not that. He was a very good honest strike dog, though. If they left without yapping around, he was going to get a lot of first strikes, first or second strikes. Big, huge hunting dog. It kind of sounds like a stereotyping, but he was one of those big, huge hunting dogs by himself and had coons when he treed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he used his mouth accordingly on bad tracks. He'd just hit here and there as he was working them. Medium tracks, he'd bark a little more. On a good track, he'd almost sound like he was treed when he was running him through there. But just absolutely was. I can't, say this enough about how dogs win and what dogs win nowadays. The biggest thing in my book that I have to have and that he was deadly accurate. When you went to a tree, if you didn't find a coon, you were scratching your head walking away wondering, how'd I miss it? Because that's how accurate he was. And, in my book, that still's what wins, when you see coons in trees. So that was in a nutshell with him. He was very, very good around trees. Didn't have a rough hair on him. He was just an awesome dog,
and a beautiful hound too.
Yeah, big old pretty. He weighed 68 pounds in hunting shape, blanket back, big bone. Had an average mouth, but the thing about him is you'd hear him at 100, 200, 300 yards, you'd think, wow, he don't have that great a mouth. But when he's sitting in there 3/4 of a mile or a mile, you could hear him the same. I mean, it was one of the mouths that carried good. So good, great tree dog. Yeah, great tree dog.
Yeah, one of the great ones for sure. And of course, that's when I think people started, you and Henry were kind of joined at the hip. And, you mentioned Henry. It was you in the next breath.
And that was, that was the big dog that really got me super going. And I know you'd asked me earlier about the Burgesses, and I do want to mention them because they're the ones that gave me my first big opportunity in the coon hunting world as far as doing it for a living. Because I was hunting for Brad and, the Burgesses just broke on the scene. They had a dog called Miker's Mark and nobody really knew him. They had all these ads in the book and this and that. Well, then all of a sudden I hear through the grapevine that they're looking for a full-time antler as a job. They're going to put them on their payroll, 401k, insurance, all this stuff. I'm like, wow. That's for me. I want to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was hunting Henry for Brad. So it was a hard thing, but I did go up and John Burgess was doing interviews just like a job. And I went in and I sat down in his office and he did an interview with me. And there were some big names that got interviewed for that. And I was the one that got hired, fortunately. I say fortunately, but man, it was a hard few months there at first because I did leave Henry. I mean, Brad owned Henry. So I went to work for John, and I'm not saying John didn't have some decent dogs, but they weren't Henry. To say, long story short, and we actually went to a pro hunt in Alabama. Me and John rode together, and it wasn't too long after he hired me, and Brad actually took Henry down to the pro hunt. Well, I'd had Henry, I think Henry was about 5 years old at that time. So, Brad had hunted him a little bit after I went over to Burgess, a few months there, but he went down there to the pro hunt. He didn't do any good, and we didn't do any good. On the way back, we passed each other. Brad calls me, and we get this big conversation about, Brad's like, hey, I can't travel up and down the roads. I got a new wife. I'm getting ready to have a baby. I think I can't, he said, I don't know who I would trust to hunt the dog like you did. He said, I'm thinking about selling him. Well, boom, light switch went off in my head. I'm like, well, make sure you let us know if you decide to sell him. He said, well, that's why I'm calling you. He said, I pretty much have decided I want to give you first chance. So and I mentioned it to John, and, John's a thinker. He had to think a little bit. And actually, Brad had turned down just a few months before that. Mac McAllister had called Brad and offered him $25,000, which is huge money back in those days.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget sitting in Brad's living room, and we made the decision. I mean, that's a lot of money for a young man like him, just married and have a new house. He turned it down. I mean, just because, I mean, Henry was such a good team, and then all this went down. So it's kind of a funny story there. So John, finally, we got to talking about it, and he said, "How much you think I can buy him for?" I said, "I think you can buy him for 25,000." He's like, "Okay." He said, "Well, let me call Brad." And so he called Brad and had Brad come up to his house, and he took him a little tour of his horse farm and all that, and they finally sat down and they started talking about Henry, and John said, "So," he said, I heard you probably take 25,000 for him." He said, and Brad's like, "Well, I've thought about it, John." He said, "And it's going to take 30,000 to buy the dog." And I guess John just, I can't pay $30,000 for the dog. That's a lot of money. And long story short, they sat there and talked and whatever, and they left. Well, when they left, Brad calls me and tells me what happens. John calls me and tells me what happens. Well, I'm mad at both of them because I'm thinking, if you can, I told John, I said, if you could spend $25,000 on the dog, why can't you spend 30? Well, then I called Brad. I thought you'd take 25 for him. So I'm just disgusted. Well, I go to bed, and John knew that he never called me early because, I mean, I was hunting for a living. I hunted every night, pretty much 6 nights a week. Usually I'd take Sunday night off. I'll never forget, the next morning, my phone rings at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was John. I'm like, why is he calling me at 7 o'clock in the morning? I answered. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm sleeping. What do you think I'm doing?" "Well, get your butt down here this afternoon. We're going to go get your dog." And I said, "Do what?" He said, "Well, I couldn't sleep all night. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and John Jr., his son, had come over before work, and his wife was sitting there with him, and they asked what was wrong." He said, "Well," told him the story about Henry, and John Jr. knew all about Henry. He said, "Well, Dad, if you want that dog, what's 30,000 if you're going to pay 25,000?" And Sylvia, John's wife, same thing. "Well, if you want that dog, why don't you buy it?" So, okay, I'm going to buy it. So I went down there that afternoon. We ended up making the trip down to Brad's, and I'll never forget, he handed him a check for $30,000. So there was a few months there I didn't have him, and then he came to my house, and I hunted him until I know this is a very long story about Henry, but
it's exactly the story I want my listeners to hear.
So what happened then is me and John had, we had a good run with him and everything. Got in the Nationals again, many pro hunts.
Got in the Final Four of the UKC World Hunt.
Oh yeah, I was I almost made it to the Final Four when Brad owned him in about 99 or 2000. Like I said, I'm bad with dates. Actually, I cost him from getting in the Final Four there. It was a rough deal. I just didn't call him when I needed to be calling him. Then when John owned him, it was the next year. Maybe we skipped a year, and then I got him in the Final Four of the UKC World Hunt for them. Yes, that was an awesome cast.
Rock
River Gap.
Yeah.
Rock River Gap won it. Mike Parrish hunting him. Alan Snedeker owned him.
You had the
Cutter Dog.
Cutter Dog in that. Yeah, man, that was like a who's who in there. Of course, Gap was kind of the underdog there, but
it absolutely was. Yeah. I mean, he was.
And you Mike had Parrish, the boy from Tennessee, his dog.
That's the dog I can't remember, and he got in the Final Four 2 years. But
what? Oh man, his name's escaping me too right now. And
we just had this discussion at the UKC World Hunt Finals this year in Peru. We had to go ask Gingrich what dog it was because we could not think of the dog.
Oh, it's right on the end of my tongue. But it'll come to me when we hang up.
It was like because somebody came to me at the finals and said, "Man, you remember that Final Four you was in with Henry?" He said, "If people look back now, that was probably the 4 biggest stud dogs, all or good dogs that made stud dogs and were bred." All in the final cast of the UKC World Hunt.
The owner's name was Bobby, but I can't remember his last
I know.
name.
Gosh, dang it. And then as soon as Alan said it down there, we remembered it. But, But yeah, so we made a good run. And, John Henry was 7 years old. And John we made, we had a few years there. We did awesome. And and he felt bad, but he was ready to get out of it. We went hard, for 2 or 3 years there.
For sure.
So that was a very, very, very hard time in my life as far as for coon hunting, because I did not want to give up the best dog I'd ever put a hand on. But he retired him, and he kept him at his house, and so I didn't have him for a couple years there, and that's when my whole era with John Strickland started with Bad Habit. But we'll go to that whenever you want to. But what happened, I want to finish up with Henry. What happened then was I hunted Habit for a few years, and we had unbelievable success with him. But I was in a big added purse hunt in Cesar, Illinois, and I was hunting Habit, and he got killed on the road. So just to jump back to the Henry story, he got killed on the road. I had a handler spot for the handler shootout for the truck, and I never forget. Strickland's like, okay, you got a spot. That was the last year it was called the handler shootout, because back then you qualified and you could hunt any dog you wanted. And he said, I don't know what you're going to hunt. We really don't have anything. I said, well, I know what I want to hunt. And he said, well, what's that? I said, I'd like to hunt Henry. He said, what? He said, hell, how old is he now? And I said, he's 10. And I said, I don't have any idea if John's even hunting him or anything. He said, well, you hunt whatever you want. And I said, okay. So I called John Burgess, and I told him what I wanted to do. And he laughed. He said, man, Jeff, he's big as a hog. He said, I haven't hunted him. He said, I don't even know if he'll trick coon. And I said, well, you care if I come down? We'll take him a spin? He said, no, that's fine. And I'll never forget it. He weighed 68 pounds in hunting shape. I went up there, and the dog weighed 108 pounds. 108 pounds. We turned him loose, and he waddled out there. It looked like a dang hot dog. Just waddled out there, struck a track, took it through there, and bam, treated it just like always. And of course, he was way out of shape. And I said, well, I got 3 months to get him in shape. I said, can I take him home and see what I can do? He said, absolutely. So, and the same thing, John Strickland's like, hey, whatever dog you hunt, if I don't own him, whoever's dog it is, you make a deal with them on the truck. He said, John's always been super fair about things. And so I took the dog home, had 3 months. I put him on a starvation diet. Basically, at first, I fed him very little and roaded him and hunted him some. And after it was about a month, I got the weight off of him. And then the next month, I pounded him. I coon hunted him as hard as he's ever been coon hunted. After 2 months, I had him ready. He was back. He was operating and looked just like he did when he was 5. So I was pretty excited. And he was 10 years old. Long story short, I went down there and I won the truck with him when he was 10 years old. So that's the Henry story.
What a great story, a great hound, and one that I'll certainly remember, having been in the thick of things back in that day. And that's a great story, Jeff. Well, let's go to what I put as number 2 on the list, and I'm thinking maybe that might be the way it is with you too. And you talked about him there briefly, Bad Habit. Tell me his story.
Absolutely. So when John Burgess retired Henry, me and John Strickland we had become, while I was hunting Henry, probably the last year. So that was probably 2001 to somewhere around that era. Me and John kind of got to know each other, Strickland, and we weren't great friends at all. We just barely knew each other. But he called me and we talked, and he lived in Savannah, Georgia, and he was starting to get it. He had a name for himself too, and he's like, hey, why don't you come down and go pleasure hunting? Like I said, I didn't know him that well. I'm like, well, sure. Well, I took Henry down there. We pleasure hunted, got to know each other very, very well. So that leads me up when Burgess decided to retire Henry. That put me out of a job, of course. I was working full time for him, just hunting. Man, I'm talking to Strickland on the phone. I'm down. I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do, John. I just don't know what I'm going to do. This has been an unbelievable job. I want to keep doing this. He said, you're going to come hunt for me, is what Strickland said. And so I said, you serious? He said, absolutely. And so he had Habit at the time. And so I took over the reins on Habit. And that's when he bought Hardwood Jenny. off of Jerry Mall.
Right.
Very well-known hound. Same thing, Final Four of the UKC World Hunt. She made it to the Final Three of the Nationals. John bought her after she'd been in the finals of the UKC World Hunt, but John bought her, so he was running her, and I had Habit, and we did a lot of winning with those two dogs. But so that's how me and John got together, and my goodness, Habit was he was a and the only reason I put Henry above Habit and John's made the same statement many a times about Habit was unbelievable dog. He was. I mean, you were going to get in. If you went to a 3-night back then, your big hunts were like 3 or 4 night big added purse hunts. If you went, you were getting in at least 2 nights. I mean, you were going to get in. I mean, he was that kind of dog, but he was high maintenance, boy. You had to work. I mean, he was one of them ones you had to hunt. You had to stay on him for certain bad traits he had. I mean, he chewed horrible.
Yeah.
He was bad about. He'd catch skunks. I mean, just he was high maintenance. But as far as treeing coons and winning competition coon hunts, they didn't get much better than him. And we were rolling. I mean, we had a little bad issue happen there. He got across the Red River in Texas. I was down hunting with Reggie Ramsey. Reggie and Winnell put me up down there for like 5 or 6 weeks. They're like, there ain't no season. I was down there for a hunt, and then there was a little time in between, and then there was another big hunt down there. And they're like, there's no reason you to drive home. You stay down here. Her Winnell's grandma had a house on the lake down there. Nobody ever stayed in it. They put me out in that house, and me and Reggie were hunting every night. Well, Habit had swam the Red River, and we couldn't get him. He actually got on an island, and I don't know how long he treed, but he absolutely treed his mouth out. And man, it was, did we have an issue? It was many, many weeks of lots of vet visits. We actually had a human ear, nose, and throat specialist doctor that we went to and discussed this issue. I mean, we couldn't hunt him, but we were winning the pro division. We were winning the open event. We were leading all that. So it was like we couldn't, it was hard to put him up. So we wouldn't pleasure hunt him. And then I'd take him to a hunt, and his mouth finally came back. But that was
I remember, I was out on the Final Four of the PKC World Hunt. Habit was in the final cast. It was the year the Patoka Lake Boz dog won it.
Sure.
But I figured Habit would win that hunt. They got treed together and scored a coon in a hollow tree. Then the dogs, kind of broke up there. Boz treated a coon, and it was Habit's hunt to win. And I was thinking that sucker's going to get treed. But it was a terrible place we were hunting. It was like we were wading around in a chocolate milkshake up to our hips. Ugh. It was nasty. I mean, there was a couple of, the guy from Texas, I can't remember his name right now, was in that cast, and Bentley from over in Kentucky. But anyway, it was a terrible, terrible night. But I did, I put that one on my resume. I did get to hunt with Bad Habit.
Sure.
But yeah, man. Yeah, he was the thing, and then he kind of opened the door when Cliff Day bred a female to him to this crossbreeding stuff, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Cliff's a very good friend of mine. Fly was her name, I believe. Good little blue tick female. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Read her a couple times. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there was some good stuff that came out of that for sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Really was.
Well, explain Habit then about how he operated usually.
He was, that, like I said the same thing about Henry. But when winners win, and they do have a lot of the same traits, and they were similar but different. The end results were the same thing. They were usually by themselves. They were deadly accurate. But Habit didn't fool with as many bad tracks as Henry did. Henry would cold trail tracks up and say, with that, stay on the ground a little longer than a man likes at times. Habit didn't do that much. Habit was looking for a little better track. Not that he couldn't run a bad track, but he didn't mess with. Now he wasn't one like the ones nowadays, and I can't stand them that have to fly through there and see one climb up a tree 2 miles away before they'll tree one. Habit wasn't like that. He could work some rougher tracks, but he looked for a little bit better tracks to tree, and had a out. another thing that was better that he had that I like better than Henry, he had an outstanding mouth, just one of those that really stands out.
Yeah.
Had a locate that sounded like a Jake brake on a semi. I mean, I'll never forget. Now Al Nunneman just brought this up. It was that cast, and I can't remember what hunt it was in, but I can't remember what Al was hunting, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was the PKC World Hunt, and I'll never forget. We turned loose and we struck a red hot screaming track in a standing cornfield. Now it was ready to be picked, so you know how dry and brown they are. Well, when you walk through them, you can't hear nothing because all that crackling going on. There's four guys handling dogs, a judge, a guide, all that. I'll never forget. We strike this track and they're zinging this thing through the country. And they're getting where it's hard to hear. So we're like, hey, let's tighten up. We're walking down this corn, and I'll never forget. There's no way anybody can hear nothing. But man, through all that noise, I heard that, that Jake brake through the country. And we didn't even stop walking. I just said, have it treed. And they're like, everybody put the brakes on. Sure enough, they're setting through their treat. I mean, I could just, you could hear that locate from so far away. But he was just a little classier hound than Henry. He just did things, he's just that unbelievable mouth. Same thing, though.
So to speak.
A little more chrome. And he was the same thing, though, as Henry as far as strike. Absolute great strike dog in honest company. Kept strike open. Awesome locate. Great tree dog when he wasn't chewing.
Yeah.
But
I remember when Ronnie
hound.
Smith was hunting him and trying to deal with that chewing issue.
Was, you had to stay on him at all times. But yeah, most of the time if you stayed on him, he was fine. But yeah, we were, so there again, going back to the story, we were rocking on, and I mean, we were winning. It was the same year, actually. John was hunting Jenny, I was hunting Habit, and we were both in the top 6 of the PKC Nationals. So it was heads up, 3 casts. And I got beat right at the end of mine, or me and John would have both been in the final 3 of the PKC Nationals. That would have been
a fun one to watch.
Right. It would have been awesome. But it was a bad deal. I think it was my fault, actually. I think I made a really bad call, a tree call that cost me that cast. I remember RD Trout was in that cast and won that cast to get in the final 3. But that was at the point where that was one of the first. He might have been the second or third hunt we had been to where Habit got his mouth back after the I told you about him losing it. So he was back to rolling. So we left the Nationals. I don't think I came home. I went to Cesar, Illinois.
Yeah.
To the Wren Lake Classic.
Wren Lake Classic. Yeah.
And we were on top of everything. There was 5 pro hunts left, and we were leading the pro division. We were like $150 away from breaking. Now this is in July or June, and I can't remember which. That's when they had changed that Nationals from March to like June or July.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's very early in the competition year. We're blowing the pro division away, $150 away from breaking the year-long open event money record already in June or July. That's how close we are to all that with him. And I was winning about everything I went to, and I drew Jackie Coomer, and he was guiding us, and we moved from one spot, went to the next, and we cut loose. And I can't remember who struck where, but I know Habit was left-handed here. Dogs were way right-handed here, standing cornfield in front of us. So we said, let's tighten up, walk through that cornfield, down along the edge of that cornfield, got up on a hill. I never heard Habit again. This is way before Garmin's. We had the beeps, but hunt runs out. So I'm like, well, I pulled my little tracker out. I said, Habit's through there. I said, man, he's a long way. I could barely get him. Jackie and whoever else was in the cast said, ours are that way. We just took a left and walked out this lane, and it wasn't 150, 200 yards. We hit a blacktop road. And when we got to the now I'm not talking a busy blacktop road. I'm talking about one lane chisel, like a, just not busy at all. We had never seen a car go by all night. So when we got to that road, we took a left to go back to the trucks. And we got back, and Jackie said, hey, let's meet back here and we'll go back to the club. I said, okay. They went one way. I turned around, went the other way. And I go down, and just as I go by that lane that we had walked out, my headlights hit something on the road down there. And when I said, well, that's a dog laying in the road. I'm like, oh my God, somebody's dog's been hit. I mean, it did not crossed my mind 1 ounce that it had been habit. I mean, I'm like, man, somebody's dog's laying down. I pulled my truck up. I'll never forget it. Pulled my truck up where I just leaned out my driver's window and looked down at this dog, and bam, it hit me. It's habit. And dead as a hammer. I mean, just he was laid out there on the road like somebody laid him there, but he had blood running out his nose. He wasn't tore up bad. We never heard a car go by. That's the crazy thing. And the only thing we could think was when we dropped down in that cornfield and walked through all that corn, it's noisy, that a car went by. But I still to this day cannot believe that somebody was going fast enough on that little old 1-lane road that they couldn't slow down enough to not hit the dog, or at least stop. And you'd think you'd have heard him hit him, or they would have got out, and you could have heard him talking. We were right there. I mean, we were just a few hundred yards away. But yeah, so that was a very, very bad phone.
Sent shockwaves through the coonhound world. I remember that.
That's unbelievable.
How old was he at that time, Jeff?
It's funny. I think his birthday was June 4th, if I'm not mistaken. It was somewhere around there. And it was like just a few days after his birthday that he had just turned 6 years old.
Wow.
So he still had 2 or 3 good years. I mean, he was a very healthy dog. But yeah, that phone call was not the one I wanted to make, because I'll never forget it.
Well, how did John take it?
Yeah, it's kind of funny now, but I always called him, after the hunt, and I'll never forget he answered, "Well, did you win again?" And I'm like, no. He said, "What? You didn't?" I said, "No." And I said, "Habit's dead." He's like, "What?" He got hit on the road. And, John took a lot, it tore him up, but he's like, "Man," he said, "things happen." He said, "It's not your fault." I told him, exactly what happened. He said, "Well, this is how quick John's wheels turn. I mean, he's always right on to the next. I mean, there's nothing you can do." He said, it sounds bad and we laugh about it now, but he's like, "Man," he said, "a dog dies, you buy another one. A man dies, you hire another one." He said, "Load him up, bring him down here." He said, "We'll bury him in the yard." He said, "Pick up Jenny." And there was a pro hunt the next week. He said, "You just get Jenny and go to the pro hunt next week." I mean, there was nothing you could do.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, there's, you grieve, but you go ahead.
Oh my God. That was the worst drive in the world. I'll never forget. It was 95 degrees out. So there was a few guys helped me put him we put him in a couple garbage bags, and I put ice with him, bagged ice to the next, I left right away and got down there, and we buried him in John's house down there. But that was a rough time there. Whew, that was a good dog.
Yeah, for sure. And that's
God only knows what he would have won.
Yeah, at only 6 years old,
Yeah.
I've lost them young like that, and they weren't anywhere near the caliber of dog that he was, but it still hurts. It
does.
Takes the wind out of you for sure. All right. Well, those aren't the only 2 that you've hunted that have done a good bit of winning. What hound would you put next on the list?
Oh man. So that the next, there's 2 that I always put there right together. One's out here in the kennel right now. That we retired him 2 years ago. Cabo's his name. He, that's, so it kind of filtered down. There was another dog in between there that, John was kind of, I don't remember. I'm trying to think. We bought Clayton.
Right.
That was the next dog that John bought. And I hate to leave him out.
Who came up with that Mayhem name?
That was Strickland's. So he started naming everything Cabo of Mayhem. All the dogs he put the Mayhem after, just like his kennel name.
Yeah.
So then that was, I don't remember. We had a couple other dogs that we had bought after Habit got killed, but Scott Engel, Calvin Hayes owned Clayton as a young dog.
Okay.
And Calvin,
the listeners, we have to go a long way back. He's a man that owned Hard Time Spec before Ed Bates
absolutely
did.
Yes. So he's in Southern Ohio around Scott Engel, and I know, Calvin hunted still hunted hard at the time, but he couldn't go to the competition hunt. So him and Engel got together, and he asked Engel to take Clayton to the Super Stakes. And that was when the Super Stakes and the World Hunt were still together in Aurora.
Right. Those
And,
glorious 10 days when I worked for
that was a
PKC,
long
10
one.
days
Yeah.
in a row.
Wow. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know if I could do it nowadays.
Oh, no. Me
But,
either. But it was
yeah,
fun back
it was
then.
fun.
Yeah.
But so Scott won the 1-year-old Super Stakes with him, and we were looking hard. And Nick Hale had a dog that was in the final cast. Don't remember that dog's name. I actually took that dog home with me. Nikki's like, "Yep, take him home with you guys." He priced him to us. I don't remember the dog's name. Pretty nice dog, but it just I do not remember. I'm not bad mouthing the dog, but it was just something that I didn't want. I just didn't like something about him or whatever. We didn't buy him. So the story got, or the conversation. Well, what about the one Engel won it with? Like, I don't know if he can be bought or not. Well, sure enough, we called and he could be bought. So boom, I jump in the truck. I go to Southern Ohio. I take Henry with. Henry's old now. Henry's in the kennel with me, and he's probably 13, 14 years old, 12, 13 years old. I don't know. I took him down there just to take him, and just maybe a little measuring stick. And so I went down there and I hunted with Clayton 2 nights, and man, we really really liked him, and so we ended up buying Clayton. Now Clayton was there again. He was an awesome dog, but he was dead silent. A lot of people didn't realize that he was silent. I mean, and he's Wipeout bred, so those two usually don't go hand in hand.
Right, for sure.
No, big old white dog. That's what we called him, the big white dog. But he, man, he moved around like a rocket and treated them coons. So he put you behind the 8 ball every time you cut him loose, because if somebody in the cast treat a coon, that means you were probably going to have to treat 2 to beat him.
Right.
But man, did we go on a roll with him too? And he's the one in 2009 I won the national championship with him. So,
right.
So him and Cabo, to get back to your question, those two were right there they're next on the list together. And I kind of always put Cabo above Clayton, just because, as far as coon dog wise, because Cabo wasn't silent. Cabo was a lot better strike dog, and but man, those two are right there together. As of right now, they're 3rd and 4th right there together. So yeah, those two.
What's the hound you're going to be hunting tonight? You said coming up you're going to do a doubleheader UKC. And,
yeah. So that's why it's kind of funny you mentioned that, because I said as of right now, Cabo and Clayton are right there at 3rd and 4th, but I believe this one out in the kennel might overtake that. I really, really do. So we go not this December, the December before. Me and John kind of got hooked back up there. So there's a story there too that I don't want to pass up. Real quick.
No, go for
it. I hate to leave him out, because he's very a good buddy of mine. So John kind of it dwindled down. Things in John's life changed. Man, he did a lot of winning with a lot of dogs. At one time, him and Rick Vogel, I was hunting Clayton, was one of them, but all the final 4 of the pup shootout in Lula, Mississippi, the whole final 4, John Strickland, Rick Vogel owned all 4 of them. So, that was an unbelievable task that happened there too. So, but what I want to get to is where John had won. He had won World Hunts, National Championships, Super Stake, everything he could win. John owned the dogs or had done it himself. So, and he was at a point in his life where his life changed. He went through a divorce. He had moved to Kentucky, had started a new business. Things were different for him, and he finally got to the point where he said, "Hey, I'm just going to back out for a little bit." He quit. And that's when Greg Dunlap comes into play. I did not want to not mention Greg, because my God. So him and John wasn't quite out all the way. And we were looking for a dog because John had sold Clayton. So
now Greg's up in New York, right? Or Pennsylvania? Yes. Yeah.
Pennsylvania, yeah. So that's when we come up with a dog out of Ohio that we had heard about. Rich Allen in Ohio handled this dog called Wild Bill. And I'd heard a little bit about him because he was out of the Rose female that Billy Cochran, Stephen Smith, and those boys down there owned her. That was the mama. So I'd kind of heard about him, and he had made a little bit of ruckus in the PKC World Hunt, this and that. He was a 5-year-old dog, and Greg kind of had been in the sport for many, many years back in the day. And he kind of got out for a while when he's back in, and I kind of met him at the hunt. So he's like, man, I'd really love to partner up with Strickland on a dog. I'd love to partner up with Strickland. I'm like, I don't know, so I got them together, and John's like, at the time, he wasn't quite all the way out, but he says, you find the dog. He said, you buy the dog. He said, and we'll split entries, and I'll take care of Jeff like I have been. He said, that's fine. Well, we came up with Wild Bill.
Yep.
Another good dog, but I won 30 or 40,000 on him, which back in the day that was pretty good, but he just was a hair off of being a great dog. So, but very good dog. And
what was he out of?
He was off of the old Davis's Hammer dog.
Yeah.
Dickie, the one Dickie Deaton hunted for a while. He was off of the Hammer dog, and then the Rose female, and Rose was Clover bred. Right. Clover bred. So, I did win. I won quite a bit with him. Just nothing. The biggest thing I won with him was, I just looked it up yesterday. In 2012, I won the pro runoff with him. Mm-hmm. Out in Missouri, La Plata, Missouri. I won the pro runoff with him. We got on the cover of the magazine with him for that one. That was one, like I said, Greg. And then John got completely out. So it was just me and Greg for several years, right, with Wild Bill. And that's when Cabo came along.
Yeah, he was out of the Cabo Wabo dog, right?
Absolutely.
That Terry Walker had, and that Ricky Hawkins hunted. And
Ricky Hawkins hunted, Terry Walker had. And then, then he, Cabo Wabo ended up, I can't think of his name, in Oklahoma. The insurance man that had him for several years there at the end studded him out.
Stone Cipher?
Larry Clifton.
Clifton. Yeah, Larry. Yeah. So Nick DiGiacomo's buddy out there.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I actually called Larry when I heard about Shane Green found this young dog. Mm-hmm. We weren't really looking. I was hunting Wild Bill. I can't remember. Wild Bill was getting some age on him, though. And maybe we were looking a little bit. And Shane had told me about a young dog that a couple Indian boys had down there. And out of Cabo Wabo, they said, mm-hmm, they run loose down there on the reservation or whatever, and they just walk out there, and if the dog's back in time, they'll grab them and take them to a hunt, and I'll never forget, Larry Clifton told me that story. The one brother showed up one night and had a dog, and he says, where's your brother with little Cabo? Oh, he wasn't, we don't know where he was at. We went out to come to the hunt, and Cabo was gone. I mean, they never chained him up, never put him in a kennel or anything. And he said, so we couldn't bring him. So Shane went down hunting with him, and boy, he told me about him. And that's when Johnny Moreland and Ryan Krausen got involved in that. I think they are the ones that actually bought him, and they're more female guys, And I was like, I begged them. I'm like, man, we really like to get a young dog. And so, long story short, again, they said, we'll sell him, but we're going to we're going to make a profit on him. Of course, we like him too. So they priced him, and so Greg bought him, and that's where Cabo come along, and we ended up, hunting him. He was very young. And in fact, Shane Green, he wasn't 2 years old yet. He was less than 2 years old. We told Shane just to keep him. It was a couple months before the PKC World Hunt. And we said, hey, you just hunt him along here and come to the PKC World Hunt. We'll pay your way and hunt him in the World Hunt. Well, he actually got him in the top 16 of the PKC World Hunt that year.
Well, I remember Shane winning the AKC World Hunt when I was there hunting that female for Reggie.
Right.
Can't remember her name. She had a male name.
Oh, man.
I can't remember.
I know her as well.
Something like Rowdy or something like that. I can't remember, but yeah. Shane, I haven't seen Shane around.
We text once in a while and talk once in a while. He's busy raising his family. The boys a big baseball family. So
I got you.
Doing a lot of fishing, and them boys keep him busy.
Well,
sure.
You bring up so many names, Jeff, that spark memories for me. And it's one of the thing about my career, was being able to meet so many guys and seeing so many good dogs down through the years. Well, that's great. Well, what are you calling this dog you're hunting right now?
So yeah, that I was going to say this. I kind of got off that subject because I
Okay,
wanted to go back and
you
make
just
sure it
pick it
talks
up
about.
wherever you want. You pick that
Yeah.
loose up wherever you want it and
So
take it
yeah,
on out of
so
here.
I wanted to go back and make sure I mentioned Greg and all the things he's done for me, because I mean, me and Greg still talk basically every single day.
Yeah.
Very good friend of mine. We go on snow goose hunts and all kinds of things, and he still coon hunts a little bit. But yeah, Greg was awesome. He stepped in when John got out for a while. So then Greg started, like I said, Cabo got a little bit old. So about 10 years old, we retired him pretty much, Cabo, and John was back. So we kind of messed around there, and he got a little female. He bought a few dogs here and there, and he had a little female, first and 10 he bought.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first one I hunted again for John. Brought her up, hunted her. And so we decided to sell her, and we were looking. So it was a year ago, December. So it wasn't this past December. It was a year before. Um, Josh Watson, good buddy of mine in Georgia, Stephen Smith, um, they told me about a little dog that Mike Gilbert, which is a very good friend
Oh,
of
yeah.
mine in southern Indiana, but one of the best pup men in the world, bar
Yep.
none. It won 2 or 3 or 4 super stakes himself with his own dogs, trained many of them that other people have bought, and won stuff with. Super dog man, and we've been great friends for many years too. But they told me about this young dog, and Josh is like, man, we go up there and hunt with this dog, and he said 9 months old. This dude looked like a seasoned dog. I'm like, whatever. And he says, I'm telling you the truth. And actually, and I hadn't paid no attention. Actually, Mike put him in the Shelburne, Indiana pro hunt when he was 10 months old and got second or third at 10 months old with
Wow.
this dog. I'm like, really? So I called Mike, and actually there was a friend of Josh's that Josh was hunting with a lot, Shane, and that actually had first chance um, to buy the dog. And so Shane Stevenson's his name. And I'm like, Shane, we really need a dog. I mean, we were looking hard. I had went and tried several, and Shane had first chance at this dog's name is Hobo. And I'm like, I'd really like to go look at this dog. And he said, well, let me think about it, because he didn't need a dog at the time. They had plenty of dogs, and they were partnered up with Billy Cochran and them. And so, long story short, a couple of days later, he said, I told Mike to let you guys come look at him, but if you guys don't buy him, to not sell him, because I'm still interested in him. But he said, I'll let you guys go look at him. If you want him, you can buy him. I called Strickland. Dog was 16 months old. And so Strickland's like, all right, set it up. So I set it up. John ended up meeting me at down at Mike Gilbert's house. And I had another friend, Derek Brewer from Terre Haute there. He brought his little female down, and we went on a little coon hunt, and he put on a pretty good show that night. And I'll never forget, he got through the country and was treed about a mile, and that was one of he had already treed a coon. We cut him off that tree, and then we walked back the truck, and you could hear him. He was setting just a little over a mile, and you could hear him great. And I'm like, well, that's you can hear him good, and he had looked really good. So I jump in the truck with John. Long story short, we're going to drive around to get him. And John's like, I'm like, well, maybe we'll go. We had actually been hunting state ground. It's horrible. That state ground down there gets hunted to death,
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm like, maybe Mike will take us some good hunting now. And John looked over at me. He said, why? I'm like, what do you mean? He said, why don't we just buy the dog? And he said, what else you want to see? I'm like, well, I'm good with that, but you're the man sitting there with all that money you're getting ready to hand over. I said, I thought you might want to see more. He said, I've seen all I want to see. I said, that's fine. So we pulled around there. I jumped out of the truck, and me and Mike and Derek walking the dog, and Mike looks around. He said, where's John? I said, he said he's seen enough. He's getting your money ready. He laughed. He said, okay. So went around there, and Hobo had another coon. We walked back the truck, paid him for him. But so long
And
story short,
he's how old now?
so that's what I was going to tell you. But
Oh, yeah.
last year, he was 16 months old then, and before he turned 2 years old, I won almost $40,000 and 7 UKC cast wins with him last year. Before he turned 2, right as he turned 2. So he's just 2 years old now. He'll be 3 this summer. And but yeah, he's actually, if everything goes right and if he does what I think he's going to do, he'll move up on that list for sure. Then he'll probably knock Cabo and Clayton out of there because I love him to death. I mean, I've been rocking him here the last few weeks, getting ready to fire back up since I got my back fixed. So hopefully you'll be hearing more about him.
Is he out of Mike's stud dog?
He's out of all Mike's stuff. Him and Cliver's stuff.
Yep.
He's out of his old dog, which actually Josh Michaelis, he's not an old dog. His daddy's Josie Wales.
Yep.
And which actually now Jeremy Michaelis bought, and he's running him in some hunts now. And but he's got several pups on the ground, not just Hobo, that's doing really good. Ryan Krausen's something, a young female. I believe she's a 1-year-old that he's really liking out of old Josie. But Josie goes so that breeding, Josie goes back to like Hard Time Jeb, like Dirty Harry.
Oh yeah.
This is I'm not sure I'm getting them all in the right order, but long story short, on that top side, those are all Mike's dogs that he had, and then they go back to Big D. So Big D's like third or fourth generation back. So then you go on the bottom side, and it's a female that Mike owned and Chuck named Casey. So Casey goes back to Judge Dredd stuff on her top side, and her bottom side is all Bellar breeding. So,
well, I know my friend Randy Smith there in Pennsylvania bred a couple females, back to Mike and Chuck's dogs. Well, what's the one dog that the other stud dog they had there had Josie and I can't remember the other dog.
Jeb.
Jeb.
Yeah. Hard Time Jeb. Yeah.
Yep. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But those pups are pretty young, so I don't know yet what they're doing. But.
Yeah, I remember that Randy bred a female or two to. I guess it was. I don't know if it was Josie or Jeb.
Well, he bred one to each. Is what he did. Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. Well, so I guess one of the question I think you've already answered, we probably know, but are you putting Henry as your all-time favorite hound?
Yeah, I really have to. Steven Smith and Josh and them guys they didn't get to hunt. They're very good friends of mine. We talk every day. So they were absolute big Habit fans. They didn't get to hunt with Henry much. He was already older. So they kind of laugh at me. They think Habit should be my number one, but it's they were both great dogs, but I just hunted Henry so much longer. He was in my life so long, and just he was probably the only thing that separates the two was that, like I said, Habit was a little more high maintenance. Henry was no maintenance. I mean, you just coon hunted him. You didn't have to do nothing to him, So that's the two things that separated, or that's the thing that separated those. But yeah, I gotta put old Henry as my favorite.
Well, as I think about dogs, and you think about the complete package and all, and he was just the classic Walker dog. When you looked at him, you look at the pictures of him, and then you put the coon dog without that, I think he would go to the top of a lot of people's lists. I'm sure.
Yes, I just can't imagine what, and we talk about this all the time. What Henry or in the Habit, what they would do nowadays with these $6,500 entry, $5,000 entry for it'd be. I mean, I'm not bragging on them. I didn't even own either one of them. I'm just saying they were so good that I really firmly believe that it would be astronomical what those dogs could win nowadays if they were in with these. I mean, look what Dustin's done. He's he's hunting great dogs, and he look at the numbers he's putting up, and I firmly believe those two dogs would have put numbers up like that too. And we talk about it now too, that there's no doubt there's going to be dogs with these numbers that you can hunt for now that's going to win $500,000.
Yeah,
or more.
Well, for sure, yeah, and it's a definitely a different ball game. I back at the time I mentioned that Kelly female I had. That was the year that that Molly won the national race, just beat out Stone by a few dollars, and then Stone won the world hunt, and then they bred them, and that's why I decided to get a puppy out of him. But Molly at that time was the all-time money leader, and she had around $100,000. And that was astronomical, to win 100.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course, old Cracker was in the, for years there, but look at it now. I mean, it is truly amazing. Well, speaking of that, do you have any idea what your lifetime earnings are?
Yeah, it's got it. That, and I wanted to get to that too. It's crazy. And I'm not saying it's
maybe
not
you
great.
don't want to disclose.
No. I'm good. Okay. No. I'm great. I don't know. I don't remember the exact number because it's so volatile right now. It's $300 and some $1,000, and it's kind of I did want to touch on that because I'll never forget. I sat in second place on the all-time money winning race for many years behind Ronnie Bone, and I'll never forget. I said I'm never going to catch Ronnie. I mean, he was hunting, at the time. And still hunting at the time. And I'm like, I'm never going to catch you. I'm never going to catch you because there wasn't, the only two things, there was the nationals and the world hunts, the only thing that paid, a lot of money at one time. And so I thought, man, I'm going to have to win one of those or, other than that, there's no way I'm going to, I was kind of looking real quick at that.
Oh, that's okay.
So
sure.
I'm at 315,000 right now. And I'm in sixth place all time. But I said at second place. That's what's funny. Ronnie's in ninth place now, and I thought nobody'd ever catch Ronnie. It's like nobody. He was still hunting, and I was trying to catch him, and I thought, there's no way. Ronnie had $277,000. I'm like, I just don't know how I'm going to catch him. And I'm like, this and that. And now look, I've passed him by $40,000 or more, and I'm sixth place now. Though that's what's crazy. The money is. I'm not saying that the lists aren't great. They're great to look at, and there's something to everybody to be proud of that's on the list. But they don't mean near as much as they used to because I mean, let's look. Right. That's like a platinum champion in a dog. I mean, you can go make a platinum champion any weekend now. Just about. There's a hunt somewhere that you're probably going to win 20,000.
That's for sure. And it used to be they pounded them out, at a open event, 15 and 20 or $30 open events at a time, And, amazing. Well, Jeff, what about your future? I mean, you gonna make a hard run at it, or are you? It's
kind of funny with that when we bought Hobo. I'm 59 now, so I told you, everybody kind of knows, or at least all my good buddies and all the guys that go to these hunts a lot. They know I'm more of once I get on a horse, I ride it. I don't jump around a bunch of different dogs, and I like a winner. So I don't care about a bunch of young dogs, this or that. I mean, the one I'm hunting now is young; he's just 2, but I'm not going to jump around. I like him as long as everything keeps going the way it is. When we bought him, I told John, I said, you do realize this might be my last one. If he's as good as I think he is, and everything goes good with his health and with me, I said, I'm thinking I'll be 65, and this dog will be, that's he'll be 8 or 9. So, I don't know. The way I feel now that they got my back fixed, I don't think 65 is a problem.
I'd like to have 10 back. I'm 75, and if I could get back to 65, man, I'd be feeling great.
I'm telling you,
I'd be out there on the weekends.
Now, last November, when me and Hobo got in Quapaw, Oklahoma, Michael Ward, Marshall Gilmore, Dustin Weed were the other 3 in. It was a big, it was a 65 big hunt, and so that was all 3 of the Heather Island dogs.
Yep.
And we met in a parking lot, and I'm telling you, Steve Fielder, I was crippled. I mean, my back was so bad, and that's when I knew I had. I mean, and Dustin was, and I wasn't mad at Dustin at all. Ward, Marshall both. I'll split. I'll split. I'm like, good. Weed sitting in the truck. He said, Jeff, I can't split. I said, why? He said, man, if I win this will put this dog as the all-time money-winning hound. I'll never forget. I looked at him. I said, Dustin, your dog's 4 years old. Do you have to do it tonight? And he just laughed at me. And he says, man, I won't be able to sleep. I'll go back to the motel. I won't sleep knowing that I could have hunted off and broke that record. He said, man, we got to hunt. I said, I understand. I'm not mad. I said, but y'all going to be mad at me when this is over. Cause I said, I'm telling you, my back is so bad. I'm slow and I got to bend over and stretch my back every 100 yards. It was bad, but, we went out and hunted that off, and, I'll never forget Tyler Compton and, Lane Denny were guiding, and, I actually ended up winning that cast. Hobo, he looked awesome. We had like I said, we had Z. Ward was hunting a little female, Sleazy, and then Marshall was hunting old Rock. So, we had some competition, and this little dog had just turned 2. I won that, and he looked really good. But I'll never forget when I'm knelt down there, thinking this is going to be a long walk back to the truck, and Hobo's treed again, and Tyler Compton bent down and grabbed my lead strap, and I spun around like I didn't know who it was, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, I'm going to go get your dog for you, buddy. I'm like, you don't know how good that made me feel, but I didn't know how much longer I was going to be able to do it. I really did. At that time, I'm like, I got to do something, but man, this surgery, it's brought new life. I mean, honestly, I can't wait till this Friday night to get back out there.
That's great, Jeff. I think I realized that my competition hunting days were pretty much over. I was on a cast down here with James Wright, who hunts for Ike.
Sure.
And the last tree, that cruise dog of mine was sitting in their tree. The hunt was over. And he said, give me your leash. And I said, what? He said, go on down, just follow this path back to the truck. I'll get your dog. And when the guys start offering to get your dog off that last tree for you, that's a pretty good sign that you maybe need to get it. But no, I'm glad you've got a new lease on life, Jeff. That's great. And, you got a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and I'd say you're going to get break some hearts this year, and I certainly wish you the best. Have we not covered something that you really wanted to cover in this session today? We've been at it an hour and 37 minutes, I think, and it's been great. Absolutely, yeah. And I'm sure. Go ahead.
There's so many things, but I know. You sent me a little list about things we might talk about. One of them was the dogs I've hunted through the years, and looking back, it's unbelievable. But some of the dogs now, some of them might not have stayed here a long time. Maybe I just hunted them for a little bit in between stuff. But mentioned some of those, like I hunted Kramer's lace female. She won a truck. Hunted her for him for a little bit. Oh my goodness! I got to hunt Mr. Clean for Brian Whitted.
Yeah,
I hunted him for a few months. But big. I hadn't had him about a month, and he was qualified for the AKC Nationals. That's when you were running AKC at that time, if you remember right.
Oh yeah.
So I went down to Greensburg, Indiana, and I won the AKC Nationals with Clean that night. There's just so many dogs. Hardwood Jenny, I handled her for John.
I hunted with Jenny. No, the Jenny female I hunted with was the one that Jerry sold to.
That's her. That was her.
Yeah.
But there's just a big country. He's
hunted with him too. Yeah.
Yeah, he unbelievable. John there. I didn't handle him much, but there was a few big hunts coming up last year, maybe the year before last or whatever, right when he was he'd won so much with John. And so John said, take him up there and hunt him a little bit and take him to a few of those hunts. So I hunted him. Oh my goodness. I mean, there's just so many dogs. The crazy female of that Billy Cochran and Stephen Smith done so much winning with. I hunted her for a little bit for them. And there's probably 10 or 15 that I've hunted that are well known that I'm probably forgetting. I've been very, very fortunate to hunt so many good dogs. It's unbelievable. I look on that all-time money-winning list, and I've either hunted or hunted with about everything on that list. That's how fortunate I've been to, in this sport. It's unbelievable.
Well, without giving away any of the trade secrets or anything like that, as I said, there's a lot of aspiring Jeffs out there in this listening audience, guys that want to be big winners. I have a friend over in Virginia, Keston Forsey. He's a young hunter, 27 years old, and he said, Steve, I know it's going to take me a long time, but I want to be a big winner in this sport. I don't want to win the small ones. I want to win the big ones. I said, well, buddy, you got your work cut out for you. But what would you say, Jeff, to a young man that's aspiring to go out and win in the competition hunts? Could you give him a little bit of advice?
Yeah, there's actually a few things that I tell, and I tell people all the time, whether they're young or old, because some of these older people, I mean, not old people, but people that they just don't realize it. But so a couple things would be, one thing is don't ever stop learning. I mean, listen to everybody. I'm not saying everybody's right, but don't be afraid to learn, because like I said, I've done this since I was 10 years old, and I still learn things today. And I'm like, wow, I never knew that. Or just little training tips or things about your dog. But people are probably gonna, I mean, most people will laugh, but you would not believe the phone calls I get, because I'm kind of known as the veterinarian at the hunt.
Mm-hmm. Well, somebody told me to contact you about thyroid dog.
Yeah, I don't know. I've just, through the years, I've got my veterinary now is 77 years old. We've been friends for 30 years. We play golf together. We're very good buddies. He's a very good vet, but he's worked with me hand in hand for years, so he's taught me a lot. I mean, I carry so many different medications and things because that's big when you're on the road. I mean, can't always get in to see a vet, or you don't need to see a vet. You just need certain things. But so my thing to people, young, old, whatever, is keep your dog healthy. I mean, that's it's one of my biggest pet peeves when I see people on Facebook or ProHound or whatever. Oh, my dog's doing this. What should I do? I'm like, take it to the vet. Why are you asking somebody on Facebook?
Right.
That's what the veterinarians went to school for 8 years for,
Yeah.
And then it's like, I do know quite a bit, but I still call my vet a lot about certain things. And maybe I might be overboard about it, but I don't second guess, because if I'm not sure what's going on, mine goes to the vet. And it's, I had an 85-year-old man tell me one time when I was 17 years old, 16, 17, whatever I was, 18. And it stuck with me to this day. And I still tell people this: if you've got a good dog that does what it does the same way most of the time, they'll all have bad nights. But if all of a sudden they change their habit and they start doing something completely different, 99% of the time it's going to be a health issue, because they can't tell you. So, and it's still to this day rings true with me. I mean, it's like a dog starts doing something that they usually don't do, not looking good for 3 or 4 or 5 days, and then boom, that bell will go off on my head. Man, there's probably something wrong with this dog. Sure enough, Cabo was the last one it happened to, and I was hard headed about it. And this boom, it finally clicked. Sure enough, took him in. He had a prostate infection. I mean, that's something you don't see. You're not going to see it, but it definitely affects. John just went through this with Apollo. We just got Apollo healed up from a bad prostate infection. Things like that, you're not going to see it. It's so that's the thing. You got to look for things like that. Right. Nutrition with your dog too. That's another thing. So keep your eyes and ears open when you're around good handlers, dog men. Always for people that's trying to learn, and pay attention to that stuff. Read the rule book. Keep your dog healthy and good nutrition. I'm not going to get into that, other than I do want to make a shout out to Native Dog Food. I've been with them since 2009. Probably in my book, it's the best feed on the market. You get that argument every day on Facebook too. So, but I can't say enough about Native Dog Food. So keep your dog on a very good dog food and keep them healthy.
Any other sponsors you have you want to shout out to, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. That really, I only got 2 nowadays that are deep into my heart that Native Dog Foods want them, and Havoc Hunt and Supply. Those guys are awesome. They take care of me in every way, shape, or form. They're I can't say enough about them. If I need something, it's here immediately, if not sooner. And customer service is number one. And it's not just for me. They take care of everybody. Stephen Smith, Ryan Eady, Havoc Hunt and Supply. Those guys, they're awesome. And like I said, the Native Dog Food, which is made by Kent. Those are the two things that absolutely big shout out to those both. So I appreciate you letting me tell.
Well, there you go. We want to spread the wealth.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Jeff, it's been absolutely awesome to have you on. I think our listeners will agree, and I look for this show to be one of my top gainers as far as downloads. That's what we look at in this podcasting world. But to have you come and spend this time with me and just to visit with you is awesome. I always enjoyed that few minutes we would have at the hunts and all. Every once in a while I'd get you and Strickland together, and that would always be a trip. And,
absolutely.
And so, yeah, well, hey, go ahead.
You don't know how much I appreciate you put me on here. I mean, it's you sit back and look at all the things that's happened in this, and you don't realize, hey, wow, I'm almost 60 years old, and I have had a lot of great moments in this sport that you let me talk about, and I've been blessed in this sport. I mean, it's a lot of people don't even know what coon hunting is. It's amazing still to this day. It's such a tight knit thing, but I've worked hard at it for many, many years. It's still, still in my blood. I still want to win, and I appreciate you letting me come on here and tell everybody what's happened.
Well, Jeff, it's an amazing story. It's an encouraging story to anyone out there that aspires to make a life of coon hunting, which you're one of the very few people who's been able to do that for a living and do it very, very well. And we certainly wish you the very best.
Well, I appreciate it. And just, I definitely want to I know we talked about my wife a little bit earlier, what she's going through now, but, we've been married for 6 years now. And, I hear stories about, I got to ask my wife if I can go to that hunter. I got to ask my wife if I can go coon hunting. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing right now. You've never seen a bigger dog lover and a more of a supporter than my wife. I mean, she's one that if I don't go hunting, don't you think you need to go tonight? You got a hunt coming up. She's never ever kept me from doing anything in the sport. She's a huge backer of mine, and I thank her very much for that. And she's an awesome lady.
And she is a tremendous lady to meet, and what a great personality she is. So shout out to Gwen, and hope that all this a little speed bump in life passes you by quickly, and we'll look forward to seeing her as well at an upcoming hunt. Well, Jeff, we're going to wind this one up for today. It's been totally awesome to talk to you, and I'm sure our listeners are going to especially enjoy all the history that they've heard here today. So we'll wish you the best, buddy, and we'll look for you down the road.
Okay, Steve, like I said, I want to thank you once again for bringing me on, and I appreciate everything. And you guys have a great day down there in Florida.
We'll do that. And as I always say at the end of each of these podcasts, if somebody asks you where's Fielder, just tell them he's gone to the dogs. Mm-hmm. Well, how are you doing, Fred?
Getting along. Getting older, too.
Yeah, we're all doing that for sure. Well, hey, what are you doing there? Getting ready to go coon hunting?
Yeah, Patty's coming down. We're going to give it a try. It's supposed to start raining for tonight and tomorrow, real heavy tomorrow, so I figure I'll get in some time tonight anyhow.
Well, you're a fortunate man to have somebody to hunt with and enjoys hunting with you. And
that's what I told you when you called. I said, I'm going to give you something to talk about. The most important thing about coon hunting is, besides a good dog, is someone to hunt with that does it like you do, not the way they do. A partner that's helped. That's as hard to get as a top coon dog, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think you're right there for sure.
It's hard to, somebody's going to put up with your ways and so forth, but I've been lucky through the years. I've always had somebody call me to go hunting. They never no shortage. And I've had some good ones. I've had some real yo-yos, and some you have to be there to see it. But the three girls that have been hunting with me the last, say, 6-7 months, Patty Busy, she's been in the game for a long time. She's got black and tans and blue ticks. And then there's a girl, I met her by accident. I ride out this back road where I coon hunt, where I used to live, about 10 miles from where I live now. I used to see this girl sitting in a field quite a bit, right about this time of evening, toward dark. I wonder what was she doing. Finally, one day she was near the road, and I said, "What are you doing out there every evening?" She said, "I like to come and watch a deer." I said, "There ain't that many deer right here. They're over in the next place." She says, "You're Moran, ain't you?" I said, "Yep." She said, "I know you. You coon hunt all the time." I said, "Yes, I do." And she says, "I know you when I worked at the Humane Society. You used to bring dogs over there." I said, "Yeah, I used to give them quite a few." And she said, "I'd like to go coon hunting with you sometime." I says, "I go every night." I said, "Do you know where I live?" She says, "Yes, I do." I said, "Be there about 10 minutes before dark." And I said, "I'll take you tonight." She said, "I'll be there." Well, I figured a lot of people tell me they're going to be there and they never show or anything. But she comes about 10 minutes before dark, and she got on a pair of shorts. I says, "What are you going to do with them things?" She said, "Go coon hunt with you." I said, "You better go home, get a pair of long pants, because them things there, you'll be crying in 10 minutes where I'm going to take you." I said, "There's briars there and other brush, and you're going to feel it on them legs without no covering on." So she went home. She only lived about a mile away. She came back with a pair of jeans on. I give her an extra light and told her what to expect and so forth. We went near it's old Army Nike site. The watchman there give me a key to the gate and everything. Got it more or less to myself. And there's a lot of coon there, but it's rough. It's thick as heck, and a lot of deer in there and everything. On the way, I purposely took a couple side roads just to show her what deer really are like if you know where to go. I showed her about 30 deer. She says, "I saw more deer in a half hour with you than I did in 5 days down at that field where you see that."
Did you tell her you hunt red bones and so you see a lot of deer?
And she's hooked on red dogs, at least at the present time. But she didn't know one breed from another. I even took her to a night hunt. I think I took her to two. And at first she was, excuse the expression, but a real dummy. But she caught on a lot, and she's quite a character. First coon she ever, well, she didn't see it. I saw it, but she didn't see it. I tried every which way, but there's a little knack. Some people go, some don't. But I says, "Go in there." I give her the leash. I said, "Go in there and get the dog." This was a greenbrier patch. I don't know if you have them in West Virginia, but they're plentiful up here. And go through them, that's like going through a bunch of razor blades.
Oh, yeah.
She was in there cussing and hollering and everything else, but she got the dog and brought it out. I just took one dog. And she said, "That's rough. Is it like that all the time?" I said, "Well, just depends where you go." I said, "I'll take you to easier place in a little bit. But I wanted to show her the coon so bad, but I couldn't get it to look again. Took her to another woods, and believe it or not, she found the coon first. I said, see that? You're getting better already. And she got a kick out of that when she found the coon. She didn't like shooting them. That bothered her a little bit at first. She finally got over that. And,
I think that's typical with women that break into coon hunting and don't have any experience with it. They enjoy the experience of being in the outdoors. They love the dogs, and it's exciting to them. And then I think that's a great way to bring somebody into the sport, is to let them find the coon if they can. But that's been my experience too. They kind of like to look at the coon, they like to see it, but they don't like to shoot it.
Well, she's been hunting with me off and on. She don't go every night. If I ask her to go, she'll go most nights. Now, Patty, she'll go 8 nights a week if you ask her. She likes someone to hunt with her, but she goes a lot herself. She'll get up and go at 1 o'clock in the morning. She has no traffic on the road, nobody to bother you, and that's why she likes that. We've all had our share of dogs killed, and she did too. But but anyhow, the other girl, the blonde bomber, her right name is Terry, and she was with me last week. I think I mentioned to her in the conversation. The dog split tree. One dog went on it was a valley, and one dog's tree only about 60 yards from us. The other dog's about 80 yards. We go to the closest dog first. I said, put him on a leash, and I said, if you want, tie him up to a tree around there.
Yeah, you told me about that, about the dogs jerking her down and pulling her.
Knocked her against the tree. She had a lump on her head. Her nose was a little bloody. Yeah. She told everybody in town and said, what happened to you? She said, my husband beat me. She told them. So she's quite a character. But like you say, it's real hard to get someone to go with you, especially night after night. I used to have a guy, his last name was Oblish, and nobody could remember something like that. So everybody in town calls him Eddie O. And I took Eddie O one night. He's quite a character. He's up in the years, I'm guessing in the 70s, but he likes to go. I sent him back. It was kill season one year. I drove up in this woods. There's an old trail in the woods, and my truck, if I can get it to the tree, I'll get it to the tree. I ain't walking. And I got a winch on it and everything else because I'm used to getting stuck. But anyhow, I go up there, and we run out of bullets. I guess I was doing the shooting, and we didn't have many in my game bag, and I guess only about 10. I says, go back to the truck, and there's some bullets in the glove box. Bring them with you. I didn't lock the doors or nothing because there ain't a house for a mile there in this wood.
I got you.
I'm waiting. Where could he be? The truck is only 100 yards. It's the most, probably 80 yards. Finally, I look way over in the next hill, and he has a cell phone. I call him up. I said, Eddie, where you at? I'm near the truck, I think. I said, wave your light up in the air. Wave your light up in the air. Sure enough, that's Eddie O. Walked 500 yards the wrong way. I says, watch for my light. See if you see it. Is that it up in the air? I said, what else would be in the air? So I had to direct him back, and that was a mess. You had to be there to see it. I thought, how could anybody walk? He walked in front of the truck and kept on going. Never saw the truck, and I guarantee he was within 20 yards of it. Never saw the truck. But like I say, I had some that are pretty good. And Johnny Children, when he was a kid, he used to hitchhike 15 miles to come down my house to go coon hunt. Not always take him home, but I wouldn't pick him up. He wanted to go so bad. He didn't have dogs, but he wanted to get dogs, and he eventually did. He had some good red dogs at first. He had one he called Hickory 2, and he told me John Wick tried to buy it off him when he run against him in the night hunt. The dog made a night champion, but as usual, John liked the money, and somebody offered a guy that hunted with him occasionally, offered him a pretty good price for a kid 16 years old at the time, and he sold the dog, and I got him a walker dog off of Fred Luber, and he was, not because I had him or anything else, the dog's name was Lead. He was loud. He was so loud, we lost him one night. That was before trackers were out. And, no, they had the beep ones. And we lost him one night. We had the heater on full blast because it was like January and cold as heck. And we're riding the road, and we could hear that dog treeing back in the woods at least a mile with the heater on and running 40 mile an hour on a back road, and that's how loud he was. He had an outstanding mouth.
I'd say that's pretty loud. Well, our listeners, some will remember John Chilzer. And he passed within the last year or so, Fred?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When he got out of the service, he was in Vietnam, and he got out of the service, he hunted with me darn near every night. And he could climb any tree as good as a squirrel. I couldn't believe it. I never was a climber except on a stepladder, but he could climb a tree. And
well, guys like us, short guys, we it's a long way to that first limb.
I never bragged on being a climber, so I usually stayed on the ground. I said, let the boy climb.
Yeah, that's right.
But John was a real hunter. He worked for me when he got older. He worked for me on the dog control business, and he wanted me to give him 4 or 5 days off in a row so he could coon hunt. That's when the coons were bringing $30-$40. He figured he could make more money coon hunting until daylight than he could working for me. And I said, no, I need you. That got him a little teed off, but he kept working.
Well, work has always gotten in the way of coon hunting.
Yeah, he'd bring in 20-some coon a night.
Wow.
He was a hunter. There's no question about that.
Well, our listeners probably can't imagine, especially some that live maybe in the mountainous regions and areas where coon aren't so popular, but that there really are places in the country or have been, and probably are. I would say there's probably more coon around the country right now than ever, because there's the coon hunting. The coon hunters aren't as plentiful.
Right.
Yeah.
Johnny Kuntz from good old wonderful wild West Virginia, Petersburg, West Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
I met him by accident, I think through Chilternham, I'm not sure. And he was a walker, man. But he started coming up, it's 126 miles to my house from his house. And he started coming up here coon hunting. And I showed him so many coon in a week's time. And guys would ask him back home, why the heck do you go clear to Marantz to go coon hunt? He says, because I'll see more coon in one night up there than I will in a week down there. Now, at the time, West Virginia didn't have no coon. They got them now. I don't know if they're as plentiful as they think or like, but they do. I've been down to John's place, and he had feeder buckets out everywhere, and we treat a bunch of coon.
Yeah.
But he told me, he said, Fred, 10 years ago, I wouldn't even got a bark on the same places we went tonight.
Yeah.
And that's why he come up to my place so often. And
well, I figured he came up for the stories, maybe more so than the coon, you think?
Well, could be.
Fred, we're going to have to cut it off, buddy. We've been at it here another 15 minutes or so. We're going to have to do a whole...
I hope you got something you could use.
Oh, absolutely. It's always a joy to to talk to you, and I hope you and Patty have a great hunt tonight, and you'll have a big story
I'll
to
tell
tell.
you about the time Patty pulled me out of quicksand, and I was stuck. That's a story in its
All right.
itself.
Well, we're going to save that one for next time, okay?
All right, good enough.
Okay, folks, that's Fred Moran, the Redbone Man. Always great to visit with him. That's going to wrap it up tonight for the Gone to the Dogs podcast. If you're looking for me, I'll tell you where you can find me. I've gone to the dogs.
Thank you, Steve. We'll see you.
Thank you, Fred.